Liquidium is one of the kings of Bitcoin DeFi right now, and they have the most used borrowing and lending protocol on the layer 1 of Bitcoin itself. So in this video, I'm going to go over exactly what you need to know about this dApp, as well as how to actually qualify for their upcoming, most likely, airdrop. Without further ado, guys, let's get into it. I've been covering a lot of Bitcoin projects on my channel recently because I think there is a ton of potential when it comes to this ecosystem. And one of the most promising dApps out there right now on the layer 1 is called Liquidium. And their whole premise is a borrowing and lending protocol for not only ordinals, but also runes tokens as well. They've had ordinal support for a while now, but they actually just launched their beta for the runes. And a lot of people have been using this platform simply because you can get different borrows and lends on your assets, but you can also rack up some of their Liquidium points, which most likely will be an airdrop in the future. Now, in order to participate in this, you are going to need an Xverse wallet. They don't actually have Unisat wallet capabilities yet when it comes to the ordinals, but they do have that for the runes tokens, which if you're watching this video and you're just getting started, you're not going to have access to because it's still in its beta. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail about the protocol because I think a lot of you guys know about borrowing and lending already, but I really wanted to highlight a few key things just so you guys are aware. The first page that I want to show here is their borrow tab, where you can borrow against all of these different ordinal assets. So for example, if you have a runestone, you can right now get 0.01209 Bitcoin for your runestone. You're going to pay about 3.24% interest or about 220% APY. This is a 10-day term, and then their LTV or their loan to value is 86%. And the way they get this LTV, for those that aren't aware, is they take this offer and they divide it by the current floor price. And this is 86% in this situation. So right now, if you accept this loan and you lock up your ordinal and get this 0.0209 Bitcoin, you are getting this at 86% of its value. So if by chance the runestone drops by 14%, now all of a sudden it's actually worth the same amount. And in this situation, you can decide to pay back the loan or just keep the Bitcoin. And what's interesting is if this drops by more than 14%, you would actually be better off defaulting on the loan and keeping your Bitcoin. So be aware, guys, that the higher the LTV, the better it is for me as someone that is borrowing from someone else. And it's actually worse when it comes to the person that is lending out, because it means that there doesn't have to be as large as a price decrease for the borrower to potentially default instead of paying back the loan. Borrowing and lending actually gives you the same amount of points over on Liquidium, which I'll go over in a little bit. But when you hit the borrow tab, you can get a little bit more information about how this process actually works, your rate, LTV, all of that stuff. And it's saying I don't have the collateral for this collection because I don't actually have a runestone to put up as collateral for me to get to the Bitcoin for this collection on this wallet. You can also hit this repay button over here and you'll get a better idea of how much this is actually going to cost you. So right now you can take an $837 loan out on your runestone, and then within 10 days, as long as you pay back that initial amount plus that interest, you'll get your runestone back. So it's actually a pretty cheap way to actually leverage your position in order to get more capital, as long as you feel comfortable that you can pay this back in the future. And if you're someone that thinks runestones are going to go down a lot, you could actually put a lot of your runestones up as collateral and kind of use this as a hedge. And if they do go down a lot, well, nice thing is you can just default. And if they don't go down a lot, you just pay back the loan with that additional interest. The same thing happens with lending, but in reverse, where if you wanted to lend out Bitcoin for these different assets, you can do so. Just be aware, guys, of this LTV, and that if the price drops too much on that asset, you might have a lot of people default. So the lower this LTV, actually the more safe it is to lend out against that asset. The lending process is pretty similar to the borrowing, where you select the amount that you want to have. It'll show you how much interest you get because the interest is actually stable, as well as the terms, and then you can create an offer and wait for someone to accept it. So the whole premise of what you want to do if you want to farm this airdrop is simply do different borrows and lends tokens on these ordinals, as well as runes in the future. You're going to get the same amount of points. It's all based on US dollar value. And then in the future, when they actually have their token, most likely you'll be able to exchange these points over to get their token. So it's nice is if you just have Bitcoin sitting around and you're bullish on some of these ordinals or bullish on some of these offers, you can lend it out. You can get that 220% APY, for example, on these rune stones. You then, in the worst case scenario, get them to default, where now you can actually sell that collateral. And then in the meantime, on top of earning that percentage, you're also able to get these additional points, which could really rack up in the future if this project and this dApp really showcase their potential and continue to build in the space. Then the flip side strategy with borrowing is also pretty nice, because if you wanted more capital to go for a specific inscription or mint or pay something off, whatever the case is, you can also do that at a very cheap interest rate and rack up points, which actually help negate some of that interest cost that you're having. When you click on the More tab at the top, you're actually going to be able to go to this leaderboard section where you're going to be able to keep track of all the different points. And what's really nice right now is there's only 4,190 participants in this leaderboard as of right now. So it's very early for this platform where you can start racking up some of these points. And in their documents, they said that they might amend or change their point system in the future. So potentially they reduce the amount of points in the future. And now if you got in early, you were able to rack up all of these points in the meantime. I don't know how much this token is actually going to be worth or how many points are going to transition to how many tokens. That's the whole speculation when it comes to airdrops. But if you wanted to do a borrowing or lending strategy, this is a really great platform to use right now, simply because you can rack up those points and get those additional tokens, which then helps benefit your overall strategy. You can also get additional points from referring other people, and I'll have my personal referral link in the description of this video if you want to support the channel and support me as well. I wanted to make two more final notes in this video. In the description, I'm going to have this article to how their point system actually works. Right now, you're not able to redeem it for everything. It says everyone can accumulate these points. People that had it in their V1 had their points transfer over. They're saying that lenders earn 100% of the points upon initiating the loan. Borrowers earn 10% at the start and then 90% when they complete the loan payback. So just realize, guys, that you can't just, borrow a bunch of stuff, never pay it back, and then get 100% of the points. You would only get 10% of the points in that situation. And that's pretty much everything that you need to know about this, but I'll at least have this in the description if you wanted to give a read through to itself. And it's saying that they might do a token, might not. Every time they do points like this, guys, they have a token. So let's just assume they're going to have a token in the future. The other main point that I wanted to bring up here is that whenever you're using a new dApp like this, recognize, guys, that this is in its beta still, and there could be different exploits where you could lose a bunch of money. So just be aware if there's some sort of hacker exploit, you can lose everything. And that's why it's never a good idea to put too much of your resources into any one thing. That being said, I think the upside on this protocol is really high to farm. You have a great working protocol on the layer 1 of Bitcoin. Not that many users are using it yet. There's only 4,200 people, so it's not an oversaturated airdrop. You're able to get really cheap interest if you wanted to borrow, and you're able to get a decent return if you're someone that's willing to lend. And on top of that, you're going to be getting these tokens. And because they've been building so fast and really getting a lot of adoption, I think that if this team can continue to build different stuff on Bitcoin, that this token could be very profitable in the future. And you're really getting in early if you're watching this video pretty much when I posted it. That pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to cover about Liquidium. And if you're someone that wants to stay on top of a lot of this Bitcoin ecosystem news, join our alpha group in the description. I'll have our Discord where we'll give you a free trial pass, and then also subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be covering the Bitcoin ecosystem a lot more. And the last thing is follow my personal Twitter, Jason Bork, because I'm going to be covering a lot of these different things on there as well. And yeah, that wraps it up. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll catch y'all later.